Hi, welcome back to the Liam Scheff Show on UCY TV and Truth Frequency Radio. We're talking about oil. This is the oil alarm. We're going to be talking about oil and energy, Fukushima. Sometimes we'll talk about religion. Sometimes we'll talk about myth-making. Sometimes we'll talk about sex and the way society is constructed. And sometimes we will talk about tree planting here on the Liam Scheff Show. This is the oil alarm. Wah, 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 wah. Hear it going off in your head. Go to the supermarket, walk down the street, turn on a light, open a book. Everything you've just done requires oil for you to do it. Yeah, even the book. Even the book was made by machines that process wood pulp, that use diesel, that cut down the trees, that grow in lots of land, that were made to grow trees so that you could have the wood pulp, so that you could run them through the factory and then pulp them and smash them and put them into paper. And even if it's recycled, it's going through diesel machines that recycle it. And turning on a light, of course, requires oil. If your electricity is generated through coal, which is likely, or gas, which is likely, gas is a byproduct of the oil drilling industry. Coal is an industry unto itself that really, the predecessor to the oil drilling industry. But all of the machinery, all of the heavy, giant generating machinery, these giant Leviathan machines are all based on oil, petrochemical machining. You have to have giant machines to make giant machines. You have to have huge rollers to flatten the steel that you've gotten out of the iron that you've taken from the earth and mixed it with, I don't know, whatever you mix it with, nickel, aluminum, in the right combination that you've perfected over a century of playing around with this stuff. So everything you do requires oil. I'm looking at a box that I took on an Amtrak train. This box is made of cardboard. Maybe it's recycled, some portion of it. Maybe it's not. If it's not, it's trees. And these trees were cut down using diesel saws, diesel engines, and they were cut in a million ways using saws that run on diesel or gas, and then they were smashed and pulped, and that's all diesel machinery. So everything is oil. This computer that I'm talking to you through is a small computer, but computers on average take about a tenth of a tenth of the energy that it takes to make a car. So put 10 computers together and you have a car. That's how much, and it takes barrels of oil to make a car, and it takes gallons of oil to make each tire and to press the metal. Everything is made of oil. And I just had this conversation with some nice people who asked what I was doing, what I was writing about. And one of the people was a mom, one was a daughter, and the mother was listening, and she's my age probably. I'm 43, and the daughter was whatever a teenager would be, 14. I'm not sure. And I said, well, when oil runs down or lower, da-da-da-da. And she said, well, what do you know, in 50 years, she said, in 50 years when oil runs lower, she continued her sentence, in 50 years when oil runs lower. Well, I don't think it's going to take 50. I think we're talking 20. Maybe we have until 2030 something before every country that's an oil producing country is no longer an exporting country because they're hoarding it. I think 2031 or 5 would be a good estimated date for that kind of no-nonsense hoarding going on. I think the wars that we're going to be fighting for oil will rage from 20 now to then. And at that point, we'll have turned inwardly and we'll be fighting inwardly about everything. People are not necessarily going to understand that it's for oil. They're not going to understand that we're fighting about oil. We're going to be fighting, and Richard Heinberg pointed this out, but it occurred to me, I think, just as a separate notion, that people don't talk about oil decline. They talk about prices going up. They don't talk about oil decline. They talk about how the government's keeping the new wonder car away from us. Oh, there's a new wonder car. It can get 6 million miles to the second to the gallon. Oh, why don't we use that? Well, the government's keeping it from us. They want to keep us all addicted. Not really. Anybody in government who's paying attention, which is probably less than 1% of that total group, understands that we're so dependent on this thing, that we all live at the end of these long cul-de-sacs, as far away from fields that grow food as we can be. I mean, who would want to have the inconvenience of agriculture in our backyard? So let's get away from those. They know that there are too many of us. They know that the population shot up starting in 1900, in the beginning of the oil age, and really dramatically since the 30s, and especially since World War II, that the population's just been doubling every 12 years or so, which never happened before in human history that anybody can tell. I mean, you're talking about a 32,000-year window. That's what it used to require. Now it's a dozen years. I don't know what kind of percentage that is. It's 0.0000 something percent. That's how... And that all happened because we're farming the middle of the country and any other big field with Monsanto land tractors, so we get everything from oil. And the people in charge know that this isn't going to last, and the very few who are paying attention may have an idea to reduce the population a little bit. They may think it's for our own good. They may think, some of them, not most of them, but some of them who don't understand what they're doing, some of them who do understand what they're doing might think that the vaccine programs are good. They weaken the population and they make it easier in a die-off. So a lot of people, die quickly. I'm serious. Some of them may actually have the thought, well, they're not going to listen to me if I run for office and I explain that we're going to run out of this thing and we're all going to have to go back to being farmers and growing food. So it would be good if a lot of people, when they die quickly. Seriously, you have to grant them that they may have this thought. Not most of them. Most of them are idiots, and they believe that something's good for you. They don't read the literature. They're pressured by bullying. You get enough people standing on one side of a line going, oh, it's good for you. Don't be a denier of science. Okay, I don't want to be a denier of science. Whatever you say. Don't be a denier. You don't want to be a denialist. We'll equate you with Holocaust denialists. You don't want that, do you? No, not really. Go ahead, inject all those children. Thank you. When we run low, not in 50 years, when do we run low? I was talking with another friend of mine, and he said, I understand what you're talking about. I just think we have longer than you're saying. And I don't remember having given him a number, but I think, to make it fair and clear, I think we're at peak now. And I think that we have about 4 bumpy years ahead of us. There may be a couple, I don't know, give us a big surprise. Say that for, somehow you're able to bring Venezuela tar sands into rapid production. This is not going to happen, but let's say you're able to motivate them by hook or crook or gun or IMF or whatever, buyout or, confessions of an economic, we want your oil. And that happens, and those billions of barrels start flowing into the world pipeline, and they favor the United States because we have a big gun pointed at their head. China is dealing with the Middle East and Africa. They'll be fracking all over Africa as soon as they can. There may be billions of barrels locked up in Africa. The question, there may be a couple 100 million or a billion, I doubt it, barrels under the sand of Saudi Arabia. Problem is, fracking requires... You in the back? Yes? No. Next? Right? Water. Right. A lot of fresh water that you then pollute with carcinogenic chemicals and paint thinner so that you can scrape and suck the grease out of the rock. So Saudi Arabia's shit out of luck. For fracking, they're already desalinating to feed their overburdened population. That's a huge die-off waiting to happen. I mean, the Saudi Arabia population, a bunch of Bedouins on camelback, happened to be sitting on top of the most important lucrative discovery of human history, this compressed energy, this compressed carbon energy called light sweet crude oil. They've built their population into the millions that cannot be sustained in that little ugly patch of desert. I don't mean ugly like it's hideous to look at. I mean you don't got a lot of farmland out there and you don't have a lot of water. It's not where you want to be in an emergency. So they know that they're up Schitt's Creek. And as soon as the oil thing starts to really wind down, that it's, what did I think Matt Simmons said, that it's home team advantage, right? They're just going to, it's ours now. We don't have any more. We can't sell it. Come get it if you can, but, you're not going to get it. We managed to steal Iraq and really lower its production through the 1990s and the war of 1990s into the 2000s. All of these are oil wars. The war of 2003, 4, 5, 6, 7 now was an oil war that was stated to be necessary in a policy paper that was published in 2001 prior to 9/11, called, at least in one outlet, called Strategic Energy Policy Initiatives for the 21st Century, which identified Iraq as a swing producer. Now, I didn't know what that meant, but a swing producer is the producer who has enough spare capacity to either turn on or off the taps to stabilize world oil prices. In other words, the world has decided that oil is supposed to be a certain price. Just like they've done with gold. They've decided that gold really can't be much above $1,000 an ounce, even though it was close to $2,000 2 or 3 years ago. It's now been artificially leveraged down. That's temporary. I mean, gold will go back up, and then I think it'll be, in some ways, even harder to sell, because when it's worth $3,000 an ounce, you could probably be killed for carrying just a little of it. So I don't know where that leaves you. But oil is supposed to be around a certain price. The world has decided it has to be somewhere between, under $50 a barrel, certainly. But it was $100 a barrel a year and a half, 2 years ago. And it's going to be back to $100 a barrel in a year, because the fracking adventure is just stalled. Now, Saudi Arabia is building fracking infrastructure. We have a lot of fracking infrastructure now all over Texas and the Dakotas. And they're looking at Oklahoma, where they're now having earthquakes, which couldn't have anything to do with drilling into bedrock. No, the ground wouldn't shift. Whatever. We need that oil. That's the point, to create this 21st century society that we're sure is just going to bloom and grow. And even though the power lines now are ugly and we're all breathing carbon monoxide all the time, that Jetsons future is just around the corner, where we all live in apartment blocks in the sky that live on giant stilts, and we never actually see the ground. Yeah. We fly around in cars that go boop, 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 boop. It's a cartoon. It's a story. Never happened, and it's never going to happen. Now, as oil runs down, in 50 years, when? Well, we're in a decline. We've been in a decline since 1973. Steady, rock-steady decline, going down, 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 down. The same as all the oil fields of the world that are more than 20 years old. Decline, 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 or 30. Sometimes you get an oil well at 40 years old that's still producing a lot. That's phenomenal, but that's like Ghawar, the world's largest oil field. But they're also pumping that with water. And the Saudis, at least in an interview with one journalist, admitted that Ghawar was pumping out 30% seawater. Because every time you drill for oil, you're going to get a certain amount of water, because they're putting so much water in salt water to push up the oil to create well pressure, so you seem to have more well pressure in the Saudi fields. But think about that for a second. You got this underground set of caverns, and it's filled with oil. And you're sucking it out, and so it declines, right? It subsides, and it goes downward. So then you flood it with water, which is heavier than oil, and the oil floats. And you flood it and inject wells. You drill wells, and you actually forcibly inject water, or CO2, or gas, something that the oil will then push up the oil or scrape it off the rocks. Then you get that oil. Then you start to drill sideways. And you start to drill in between two wells. You infill. You have two wells that you drilled, and you drilled them a certain amount apart so you wouldn't drain it too quickly. You wouldn't essentially have the wells competing with each other. But now, screw it. Both of these wells are in the decline. Let's just drill another well. And you manage to get a little more. What happens after that? What's interesting is decline happens more quickly after that, and that happened in Mexico at the great Cantarell field. Now, I didn't know that Mexico was a huge oil producer when I was growing up, and it wasn't. It became one at a certain point, and that changed their fortunes. And you remember when Vicente Fox came. Remember when Mexico's image started to change, and instead of being just sort of a place where cruises went to Mazatlan, and you made fun of getting Montezuma's revenge. It started to be like a real competitor in NAFTA. Well, they were supplying most of the U.S.'s oil for a while. That's our energy. That's our plastic. That's our tables and our IKEA furniture and our food. That's our road surface and our cement floor. That's the food that we get coming into the grocery store that's shipped and plastic wrapped and processed. That's our medical supply. That's our pharmaceutical industry. That's our military-industrial complex. That's oil. We need that stuff. Thank you, Mexico. Hey, we're friendly now. Hablas español. We all hablo now. I know what I said, hablas. I was just, it was imperfect grammar for, all right, just relax. So is it 50 years? No, it's not 50 years. We were on the decline since 73. Then we started fracking in 2006-7, exactly when the world had peaked and was declining in crude oil production all over the world. At that point, the world was beginning to decline, and it was clear that peak oil was something that was real, that we'd have a peak and then we would decline, and then we would have to figure some stuff out, like maybe conserve or get out of the capitalist model that says, you know what, if you have one of these, you really need 50. And everybody should have 50. Not just you, but everybody. What are you, selfish? Don't be selfish. Everybody should have 50 of these, maybe 100. Maybe they should be cheaper. Let's make them somewhere else. Let's export the fish that we grow here in the Great Lakes to China, because we hate this fish, and we can pay women there to fillet them and fry them and send them back, buttered and breaded, and then we'll sell them in plastic wrapped the frozen section of the grocery store. Well, that actually happened. That's actually happened. That's not a rueful, made-up, apocryphal example. That's actually true. There's a fish from, I think, one of the Great Lakes, and people just decided it was a junk fish, so it was fished and then sent to China, where it was filleted and fried and sent back and sold in the frozen department of the supermarket. Because we had so much of this free energy, we could do anything like that. And, hey, but Liam, you're getting me down. You're being a doom and gloomer. I got into something with a guy who's kind of a dope sometimes and sometimes not, and he was just likes to fight for no reason, and he was giving me ugats. He's giving me scheisse. And you're being a doom and gloomer. I said, well, if you were getting on a boat and the boat had a big leak in it, would you like me to tell you that it had a big leak in it, or would you like to discover it? Let's say it was a slow leak, an imperceptible leak, and I saw it because I had become pretty good at spotting imperceptible small leaks in boats, and I said, I think there's a leak there. Oh, shut up, you're a doom and gloomer. Okay, but you're going on a 3-day boat ride, it's a slow leak, but it's not that slow. Oh, shut up, you're a doom and gloomer. Bon voyage. Why are we fracking? We're fracking because we ran low on the good stuff. Why do we think we have 50 years? This was a young person, a bright young person, who had heard about fracking in school, whose teacher had said that fracking was environmentally terrible and awful and dangerous, which it is. Fracking is what we're going to do all over the world. We're going to frack and frack and frack, hydraulic fracturing, cracking the rock to suck out little bits of greasy rock. Because the market will solve the problem. I know that we're out of new big supplies of the cheap stuff. I know that in order to stay in business, we're going to essentially have to find new Saudi Arabias, every year. Maybe 3 of them in the future. Because if the economy doesn't expand constantly, we're all failures and money isn't worth anything. I mean, money's only worth something because it's a debt that we took out from the future, remember. Money's a debt that we took out from the future. Money's a bet that we made with the future that we'll gladly pay you 2 hamburgers today for the hamburger that you fed us today. Tomorrow for the hamburger that you fed us today. Yeah, that's money. It's a debt. It's a hole that you dig in the future. And then you say, because I dug this hole in the future that I say that I dug, I now have this piece of money, this piece of paper that says worth the value of whatever fills the hole tomorrow, plus interest. So we get to tomorrow and we imagine there's a hole there. There's not really a hole there. But we imagine there's a hole there and we say, well, I'm going to pay this back. Here's some money that I took from a hole that I dug in the future plus interest. It's got to be a bigger hole, so the future's got to be a bigger future. That's where we live. That's called capitalism. And because we live in a constant growth market economy that says that it's illegal to grow food in your front lawn because you have to buy it from the grocery store. That's right. Don't grow food in your front lawn. The police might come by. Your neighbors might complain that your tomatoes are unsightly and bringing things like bees and pests. My God, what is that fruit tree doing there? Don't you know you're competing with the grocery store? That's un-American of you. You can't compete with a grocery store. The grocery store is our best friend. The grocery store brings us things from thousands of miles away, covered with pesticides. Why do you want to compete with them? Don't compete with them. Chop down that tree. Put some glyphosate in your front lawn and have a big green bed of fake grass. And then go inside and don't look at it. Watch television. Watch cable and see what Nancy Grace wants you to be upset about. See what people on television want you to be upset about. Don't grow any food. You'll be harder to kill if you have food. You're listening to the Liam Scheff Show on UCY TV and Truth Frequency Radio. You can support independent research and journalism. Please do. Please do. Please be generous. please go to my website. You can see a PayPal insignia there on the right. If you click the About Liam, you'll see it there. You can donate $10 or $20 or $30 or 1 million rubles or whatever you have, really 10, 20. You can do $5 a month or $10 a month and help me tell the story that I'm telling to more and more and more people, which is we have to be growing food because this stuff isn't going to last forever. You can also go to Amazon.com and buy a book that I'm very fond of. It's called Official Stories. It's a reverse textbook to all the lies I was taught in school, and I imagine you were taught many of them too. It's a fun book. It's a disarming book, and it will make you think and laugh and more. It's called Official Stories at Amazon.com on Kindle and in paperback for a pittance. I should charge more, but I don't. We're a several million-year-old species. By any accounting, human, hominid, early humans have been around for millions of years. Not 10, but, 3, 4, 6. And human Homo sapiens for a couple 100,000 years. If you grant them the right to do carbon dating, if you think that 10,000 year flux period, they have error margins of 10,000 years or so. So you grant them a couple 100,000 years. And you grant that life on Earth has, progressed. Evolved is a word I don't use the way Darwinians use it. I think that the universe is a mind, an infinite fractal imagination that manifests life that has always been, that will always be, on the warm, wet surfaces of rocky planets as long as they're in the anode glow of an electric star like a sun. Then I think life unravels and unfurls according to local environmental limitations and advantages. But not an advantage like a breeding advantage, like I was accidentally born with a flipper and you were accidentally born with a foot, and accidentally the whole area became an ocean, so accidentally the favor went to me, and so accidentally one of my children had a flipper. But it's all bullshit. That whole Darwinian thing is bullshit. The way things change is in utero, probably driven by the electromagnetic chemical interference and interchange with the environment. And if we let go of the idea that it happened by accident, we'd see that things actually tend to change in the plastic state, which is in utero. Anyway, that's a subject change, and that's chapter 8 of my book, Official Stories. We'll talk about that. Problems with Darwinism, problems with, slight success of an accidental as a means of actually creating all the manifested life that we see. No. It happens in the plastic state. Don't be ridiculous. Give nature its due. Nature is a mind. Anyway, do we have 50 years or 20 years? You can go to the chat room at Truth Frequency Radio. You can go to the chat room at ucy.tv, and you can say, no, Liam, we have 100 years of oil left, man. The government's holding back the free-flying saucer technology from Area 51, dude. And, if you would just believe in that, it'll happen. Well, I don't believe in it. And if you find it and you can make it so, I'm glad for you. But I don't care. Because right now there are no working models. And now is the emergency. We're in the emergency. I see it. I see the emergency because I see prices are 5 times what they were 6 years ago. Prices are 10 times what they were 10 years ago. I see the price differences. I see the skyrocketing price interference from things having to be grown far away because we're all on a petrodollar. Because petroleum is more expensive. So it's more expensive to run the giant Monsanto lands that we used to run for a pittance because oil was cheap. It's more expensive to run them because water is in decline. Because we stuff some gigantic 40 or 50% of the water, the fresh water that we have in this country, we feed to cattle in food and in normal water. We stuff it through cattle because we got addicted from a strange British fascination to large animals, to eating large animals. Unlike all the other people of the world who tend to eat small animals that do not overwhelm the environment, we decided to eat the largest, dumbest, slowest, lumbering mammal that requires the most water that we could. And that's supposed to be what's for dinner. It's not. It doesn't have anything to do with it. It's a passing fashion and it will go away. In the meantime, it would be really great for everybody to stop using all the water in the country to feed to a few cattle. Oh no, you know what? Just let them graze on your Monsanto land lawn. You don't have any food trees there, so just let them eat the glyphosate and then you can eat them. Or you can at least melt them or let somebody else cut them into little pieces and take a piece and shred it and then put it into a box and freeze it and then process it and send it to your house so you can microwave it and eat it late at night when you're just feeling a little peckish. Oh, we're going to hit a break. That's not an excuse to be quiet, is it? I'm just watching the clock tick by. In the second half of the show, I want to talk about biofuels a little bit and what happened in the conversation as I said everything that I just said. I said it briefly. I said it with a sunny smile on my face. And I say it to you with a sunny smile on my face. This is Liam Scheff on the Liam Scheff Show. It's the oil alarm. Do you hear it going off? It's in decline all over the world. Sure, there's a lot of tar. Sure, there's a lot of sand. But it's not going to build New York City all over again. We will be back. Stay tuned to the show. And it's a UCY TV special. Hi, it's your host Liam. What are you doing? What are you wearing? How are you feeling? What are you eating? Are you planting food in your neighborhood? You should be. It's not as hard to plant food in your neighborhood as you might think. In fact, it's getting easier and easier with a little technology I call getting off your ass. Yes, it's the new getting off your ass device. It's attached to your legs and it's motivated by something called your brain, which you're using to watch television most of the time. In order to use the getting off your ass device, you have to put down the cell phone, turn off the television, and try really hard to think about what it would be like to be hungry. Most of us don't remember what it's like to be hungry. We've not been hungry for years, maybe ever. People in other countries are hungry all the time, but us, we have to force ourselves to be hungry when we're dieting. That's right, Americans have to force themselves to go hungry. In other countries, it happens easily. Nobody has to do much, it just happens. But here, we have to force ourselves to be like everybody else and be hungry sometimes so that we can drop a few pounds. Do that for a little while, don't eat anything, force your mouth not to eat anything and force your hands not to take anything from your kitchen and put them in your mouth. Do that for about half a day. You can still drink water, but not juice. A half a day later, you might be hungry. Now think, what if there were no crap in my refrigerator? What would I do? What would I do? Here's what you do. You go outside to your trees and your ground in your neighborhood. Even if you're in an apartment, certainly your whole neighborhood is swarming with bees happily pollinating. What? They're not? They're not pollinating flowers and food plants? How confusing. I think that you need to plant some food trees. You just have to find somebody who's good, a good arborist, a good horticulturalist. Go to your local plant store and see if they're selling any little fruit trees, any dwarf trees. You can plant those right in your yard. Make sure to remediate your soil to get rid of the glyphosate first. In a couple of years of having a fruit tree, depending on the type you plant, and you have to go research this, you might actually have some food growing in your lawn. You might learn to make compost teas. You might learn to make compost piles. That's stuff that you pile up in your yard and leave there until it turns to soil. You can even turn it with something called a pitchfork. This has been a UCY TV special, Liam Scheff, talking about growing your own food. Once you start moving around, you can build a raised garden with wood or stone on the side. You can buy soil or you can make soil. You can do both. Your compost heap and your soil and your worm bin are going to be great sources for wonderful soil for you to grow things like turnips, cabbage, potatoes, yams, sweet potatoes in. Actually, yams and sweet potatoes really want to grow in sandy soil in the south. So it's going to be important for you to learn about where you live, which will require getting up off your ass. Get the Get Off Your Ass device right now. It's available right where you are. Try it. And we're back with the Liam Scheff Show on UCY TV and Truth Frequency Radio. I'm doing what I shouldn't do. I'm going to lay flat. I've got a margarita in one hand and a Shirley Temple in the other. Shirley Temple Black, the congresswoman from wherever. A friend of mine just sent me a Rodney Dangerfield bit probably from the 80s. And he said, "My wife and I were happy for 20 years. Then we met." Monogamy is so natural. Yes, we're a tribal species. Yes, we've talked about this many times. Yes, I just keep coming back to it because I see so many people struggle with this. I met a really nice guy, a guy I've known off and on for a little while, and he's dating somebody, and he's very, very religious, and he's trying not to have sex. And I just stood there, like in awe, aghast, in shock. And I said, "Why?" He said, "Because it's the rule." I said, "Where?" He said, "In the book." I said, "What? Which book was this written in?" "The Bible." I said, "No, it's not. That's the rule you think that you have to have in there. That's not in there. That has nothing to do with the... That's about herding culture. Ancient Babylonian, Sumerian, and Levantine herding culture. They didn't have any rules about frickin' marriage. I mean, Song of Songs doesn't talk about marriage. It talks about goats and fawn and frankincense and smells and winds from down south. Yeah. And I don't remember Solomon marrying all of his concubines. So or what, Abraham, I guess. I just don't understand why people get hung up on this kind of thing anymore. I barely care, but apparently it's very important to everybody to feel that they're better than everybody else. So they cling to some religious dogma. Oh, by the way, happy Harry Potter Day. It's the birth or death, I can't remember which. I think the death and rebirth of Harry Potter today in one of the religions of the world, or a couple of them. I just have a really hard time understanding it because the stories are so bad. You know, biblical stories are just so bad, and so many of them are so violent and awful. But people cling to them, and then they say, "Well, it's in the Bible." Well, so is sanctified rape, gelding, circumcision, genocide, killing entire groups of people because they're of your tribe but not quite of your tribe enough. That's all in the Bible. So don't tell me that that's in the Bible and then it's just the part you don't read. It's just a story. It's a story, it's a myth, it's a story that you use because you want something to reflect your own morality off of, to weigh and judge your own morality. I get that. You can use any story. That's why stories keep getting remade and remade. That's why they're going to do more crappy Star Wars movies, because people want the mythic experience to bounce their life's experience off of. Oh, give me another story to bounce my life experience off of and let me think about my own morality. That's what myth is for. It's for us figuring out what our own morality is. It doesn't have anything to do with what really happened. Anyway, whatever. This is the Liam Scheff Show. Happy Harry Potter's birthday, or death day, I can't remember. Happy Harry Potter to you, Expelliarmus, Expecto Patronum. And I really resent Jerky Rowling, by the way, for taking abracadabra, which means open up, and making it the death curse, Avara Kedavra. No, it's abra, open, cadabra. It doesn't have anything to do with killing people. It was an open spell, you bitch. And yeah, I resent her for taking that one really good spell and making it the killing spell. And by the way, if you have a killing spell and all you have to do is say it, why not just say it? Hey, abracadabra. Oh, sorry, you're dead. Hey, abracadabra. Whoops, sorry, got you. Hey, abracadabra. Whoops, sorry, buddy. Didn't mean to kill you right there. Abracadabra. Oh, whoops, shouldn't have said that. Give me a break. Die, Harry Potter, die. He did die. And then he came right back. It was so poorly staged in the movie. I mean, honestly, he's dead, and then he comes back, and you know he's not dead, so you're never really alarmed. And then he's alive as soon as Mrs. Snapey Puss, whatever the lady, I can't remember her name. I know, she's the daughter of Eddie Haskell. I mean, she's the mother of the Eddie Haskell character. You know, there's the bastard kid in the school with the blonde hair, the one everybody hates, and he's like violent and Malfoy or whatever from the beginning. And then the mother is part of that goon squad with the guy with the snake nose, Ray Fiennes with the snake head. And then she walks over and she says, is he dead? Yes, my lord, he's dead. Oh, give me a break. He already was moving and we knew he wasn't dead. And then Hagrid's carrying him. What, Hagrid's a gamekeeper and Hagrid wouldn't know that he wasn't dead? I mean, Hagrid, like, deals with animals all the time. He knows if something is dead or living. Give me a break. Screw you, Harry Potter, and for wasting my time. This is the Liam Scheff Show on UCY TV and Truth Frequency Radio. Just letting it out. Just letting it all hang out. I was having a conversation about oil decline because oil is in decline. I understand that we're in a fracking bubble. It doesn't mean that worldwide oil is in decline. In fact, the vast majority, some 80% of the world, I don't have the list right in front of me, I'm sorry, but the vast majority of all countries worldwide, including OPEC countries, are in decline. I'm not making that up. Just go type in which countries are in decline, oil, which oil, countries in decline, countries in production decline. Go look it up. Go look it up. Oil, countries in production decline. Go look it up. I'm not making it up. Some 80% of the countries in the world are in decline, permanent, inexorable, irreversible decline. Oh, they'll employ some nice, nifty new technology. They'll try to get a little more out of hither and yon. They're going to inject steam now. Hey, I got an idea. Look at this tarry sand. I have an idea. We can't get anything out of this, so let's dig it up with a giant steam shovel, size of your house, and let's semi-boil it. We'll heat it to strip. We're going to strip. Now, hold on. I know it takes energy to do this. Well, we'll just have to get some natural gas from somewhere. Come on, just stay with me for a second. We're going to heat the thing to strip the oil off the sand. Yeah, that's a good idea. And then we're going to process that with chemicals. It's too viscous. We can't really sell it. We can't pipeline it. I mean, it's not going to flow down a pipeline. So we're going to have to mix it with some petroleum chemicals and solvents. Let's do that. Now we're going to have to redistill that or reprocess that to get some of those chemicals out of there so that we can actually sell it to some sort of diesel market, shipping market, truck market. Maybe we could get to the car market, maybe not. It's going to be hard, but it's going to be worth it. Hey, because we have more tar sand than we ever had regular oil. And maybe that's true. Maybe there are more tar sands than there were regular oil. So why didn't we use the tar sands first? Does it have anything to do with the fact that it's fucking impossible to get oil out of these things? I mean, it's really hard. You have to use so much water, and that water is essentially irreversibly polluted. I know people will say, oh, it evaporates and goes back to the site. Not really. It just stays there in the ground, water being polluted, and it stays there in the lakes being polluted. And more water flows in, and that lake remains polluted, and we never really get rid of the pollution. So even if the water, the H2O, rises back to heaven and falls back down, it falls back down into the same reservoirs, which are polluted. And it's difficult to nigh impossible to take these kinds of pollutants out. We're not even trying, not really. I mean, it's not like we're funding some new Keep America Green initiative. That's all gone out the window. I mean, Love Canal, you ain't seen nothing yet. We haven't even begun to touch on the environmental devastation that we're going to be doing in the next 10, 15 years. The next 10 years of oil drilling are going to be the most caustic that anybody's ever seen. And they're telling you that. I don't even have to tell you that. You go look at the investment pages and see where they're directing rich, stupid people to put their money. There are a lot of rich, stupid people in the world. Don't get the idea that rich people are smart. They're not. They inherited their money, or they were just good at a field that made money in the 20th century, whether it's real estate or oil speculation or diamond mines. You don't have to be a genius to do this. You have to have a particular head for a particular kind of worldly investment. And then you make a lot of money. You do not have to be smart to make money. You have to be good at one particular thing, and that's it. You don't have to be a good person. You don't have to be a bad person. You're just a person who's good at something that happens to make money in the 20th century. That's it. Period. So stop telling me that rich people all get together and they know what they're doing and talking about. They don't. They look at these investor prospecti and they say, fracking, it's America's future, American independence, oil independence is the best thing that we could have. We haven't been oil dependent since I don't even know if we were in 73. We were importing Saudi oil at that point. But we haven't been oil dependent since World War II. That's it. I mean, we're not oil dependent. It's not something that we should even strive for, to be energy independent. What we should be doing is conserving. But Americans hate conservation. 50 years. I was having a conversation, if you were listening to part 1 of the show, about oil decline in America and the world. And a young lady I was talking to, a young woman, teenager, I guess, and her mom were listening to me, and she said, "Oh well, when oil runs out in 50 years," and I said, "50? I don't think it's 50." I'm not saying run out. I'm just saying run out of the volume that can keep industrial civilization going. Don't forget to underline that. I'm not saying oil is going to run out. It's going to run below the point that we can keep industrial civilization going. That's important to remember. Oh, I have oil. I can light a camp stove, but can I run a rocket ship? No, you can't run the rocket ship. Yes, you can light the camp stove. That's where we're headed. You get it? Does that clarify things? I'm so glad that we had this discussion. So she's telling me that it's 50, and I said, no, I think, maybe 20. I think that's a stretch. I mean, I really think we're headed for a pretty steep downturn in the next 5 to 10. I think the next 4 years are bumpy plateau. I think there may be a few surprise discoveries and a couple of wars that prolong it just a little bit longer, but hey, if I can come on the internet in 2025 and say, well, we seem to have as much fracking stuff as we were then. It's really rough. There are a lot of wars going on, but we're still running most of the independent car fleet. And even though international jet travel has declined 70-80%, it's still going. I'd be surprised if that were the case. It's possible. I think it will sound more like this, 2025. Yeah, sound of silence. I think that by 2025, I don't know that we have enough spare capacity to be running large internet server banks so that we can all be online all day long. I don't know that we have that. I think that we're out in the field growing stuff, if there's a field to be growing things in. I don't know that Fukushima doesn't take us all down. I don't know that. I can't tell you that. Nobody can. Nobody can actually argue that successfully because we've never done this experiment before. So I give it a couple of decades. She gives it 50 years. Then the question comes up, and I really love that the question came up quite naturally. But we built a computer. We've done all this stuff with technology and medicine. And I said, well, what's the computer made out of? She looked, and the answer was coming to her mouth. And I said, yeah, oil. Oil. A computer is worth a tenth of the energy of oil of a car. So 10 computers equal a car, something like that. Oh, damn, she said. The mom. I was talking to the mom. But can't we invent some other kind of fuel? I mean, she actually almost threw her hands up in the air. Can't we invent some other kind of fuel? I thought, yeah, like what? I mean, the biodiesel experiment with corn is over. That was a huge disaster. We have 7 billion people on Earth. Some significant minority of them are hungry all the time. Starving. May even be a near majority are hungry a lot of the time. We stuff most of the grain. Let me get this figure right. We put at least 30% of the grain that we grow into cattle, which is essentially a 20-to-1 loss, and it might be more. It might be more than that. For some reason we feed animals the food that we grow because we want to eat the animals instead. Why? Don't tell me it's natural. Don't tell me that what I just described is natural. Don't tell me growing make-believe food in Monsanto land, make-believe genetically modified, criminally modified grain and bean in Monsanto land, and then stuffing that into cows, which are herbivores, which are supposed to graze flatlands and grasslands. Don't tell me that that's natural, and then we're supposed to eat them and the pigs that we put in these giant feces lagoon disasters, these factory farms, these CAFOs. Don't tell me there's anything natural about that. And don't tell me that eating meat in that way is natural. You go catch a guinea pig and eat it. Hey, thumbs up. You go catch a fish with a line and a net and eat it. It's good for you. Catch a bird. Go eat it. I don't care. Do your thing. Don't tell me that the way that we do it is anything to do with nature. It's not. It doesn't have anything to do with nature. It's a fake argument to even argue that kind of meat eating is natural. I don't care if you're getting grass-fed beef. It's all fed on alfalfa that's grown on fake real California desert that's turned into fake agricultural land. That's where we live. But what about biodiesel? Well, again, the ethanol experiment, remember? We're going to have the hydrogen economy. George Bushy said, we're going to have a hydrogen economy. His handler said, George, go out and say we're going to have a hydrogen economy. Remember, the key word is alpha 2. Hydrogen economy. We're going to have a hydrogen economy. Hydrogen economy. Hydrogen economy. We're going to have a hydrogen. Do you see the hydrogen economy? I don't either. Yeah, it was all bullshit. Smoke and mirrors. Ain't gonna have a hydrogen economy. Hydrogen isn't an energy source. It's a energy storage source that's incredibly volatile. Ever hear of a hydrogen bomb? Good luck. What about biodiesel, though, from switchgrass? Yeah, okay. You know, you can take certain grasses, and you could certainly take hemp, which is an oil-bearing seed, which is criminally illegal to grow in the contiguous United States, and you could mill some of that into various forms of alcohol, which you would use for keeping lamps lit and keeping yourself warm. I guarantee you'll use it for that before you use it running a generator. I mean, how much of the country would you have to actually populate with plants that you intended to waste to satisfy portions of our gas habit? There is a statistic for that, and it's something like all of it, or 3 times what we now use for food. I mean, if we wanted to satisfy our electric bill, our energy consumption, you know, we'd have to have 3 times the land that we grow for food to do so. And then it becomes a question, like, that doesn't even, I don't think that covers gasoline. I think I'm talking about electrical production. But I'll get that statistic for you next time. You're listening to the Liam Scheff Show on Truth Frequency Radio. We've been taking a walk all around from Darwinism to the failure of biofuel. You can go online now and you can read gut-wrenching exposés by real investigative journalists about what environmental horrors were caused by the biofuel experiment. Or you could have listened to anybody before the biofuel thing started saying, no, the energy return's too low, it won't be worth it. You could have asked me. You could have asked Matt Simmons. You could have asked Colin Campbell. You could have asked Mike Rupert. People did ask them. Save the world a lot of trouble. But we're not going to do that. Why? Back to the same old, because we're a short-term thinking creature. We have very short-term thoughts. It's difficult for people to sit through a 30-minute, an hour-long radio show. Well, it's too long for me to sit through and listen to that. I don't want to listen to that. I want to go out and do something. What do you want to do? I don't know. Lay down, lay on the sand, walk around, walk to the store and buy something. To what? To eat, of course. Primarily, we're driven by that instinct, our desire to eat, to put food into our stomachs. That's what drives us. That's what compels us all the time. And if it's not food, it's another kind of titillation, a.k.a. sexual stimulation, which we fake by watching television. We used to be more honest about it and simply have touch and back rubs and hugs and humping and cuddling and kissing and all that kind of stuff. That's fun to do. Much more fun than watching TV. I love it when I meet people and they tell me they don't masturbate. I just think, I'm sorry. You're missing one of the great free ways to produce happiness in your life. I'm so sorry that you exclude that from your way of being. Good luck next time. We're a short-term thinker. We're short-term thinkers. We did not evolve, or we did not come around on a planet where we had to think very far into the future. We just had to think, that's a grasshopper, I'm going to catch it, and then I'm going to catch the next one, and I'm going to catch all of them, and then I'm going to put them on the rock where we made the fire and cook them and eat them. And I'm going to share them with my friends, because my friends like me more when I share. That's what we are. We're a short-term thinking, sharing creature. And when things run low, we get crazy. Oh, I can't share any more grass. All right, here, take this half of the grasshopper. All right, but we're both hungry. Fuck, what are we going to do? I don't know. Hey, look at those people over there. They have grasshoppers. They're going to sleep. Let's steal their... We're hungry. They don't need them. They're asleep. Okay, let's go ahead and steal. Now we have to fight. Damn, I hate fighting. Let's fight. Okay, I got to smash that person's skull. Oh, look at that. There's food in there. Hey, we can eat that. That's happened. You put human beings in a situation where they don't have enough food and they don't have clean, drinkable water, and they're crazy. We go crazy. All of our worst qualities come to the surface immediately, like oil like an oil slick on the surface of the Great Lakes. It happens immediately, like an algal bloom in Lake Erie. It happens overnight. It's quick. give us enough food, give us enough clean water, we're good. We gossip, we start to develop society, we have time to paint things, paint ourselves, paint each other, weave baskets. We might even get into secondary pursuits like planting some of the seeds that we found so that we have more of them. It's the beginning of agriculture. Boy, when we learn to do that and we learn to dig trenches from some of the rivers and lakes and really rechannel the way some of the water works, we have all kinds of food growing all over the place. How fascinating is that? How wonderful for us that we get to have food everywhere. Just by having some extra food, we develop the ability to have even more extra food. And we get all of our energy from food, which comes from the sun, of course, and the earth. But now we don't get our energy from food, do we? Oh, we do, but we sink energy into getting food. We sink oil into actually growing food. We put oil into food growing. We don't let the sun do it anymore. We don't let manure do it anymore. We actually spray the field with oil, that we till with oil, that we thresh with oil, that we harvest with oil, that we plow and drive with oil, that we pick and separate and mill with oil-bearing machines, oil-driven machines, diesel engines, gas-powered engines, diesel engines, gasoline engines. We waste 10 calories, 7 to 10 calories, depending on whose estimate you buy. I'm going to say 10 calories because they never even include the shipping and the packaging. I mean, add the shipping and packaging. We waste so much energy getting this thing that we call food from the field to our mouths. The processing of this thing that was once a grain or a bean into something shaped like some sort of lion or teddy bear that tastes like artificial vanilla that we can crunch on when we're watching television. Handfuls of this fake shit that we eat too late at night, and then we don't sleep well, so we have to take drugs, and our bowels are irritable. No shit, they're irritable. We just ate fake lions made out of hydrogenated Monsanto land GMO corn. Little lion garanimals. Walking through the grocery store, and there's a little lion-shaped cereal, what are those called? Animal crackers. Little animal cracker-shaped cereal. Oh God, I get to eat animal crackers. What are we all, fucking 5 years old? God, I know maybe it was a kid's cereal, but but I guarantee a lot of adults buy it. Why do we need this? What's so bad about eating maize and oatmeal and cream of wheat or pasta? I mean, I'd rather eat pasta all day long than cream of wheat. I hate cream of wheat. But these things are available. Couscous and quinoa. Why don't we eat these? Oh, yeah, grain's bad for you. No, it's not, you fat, ridiculous idiots. It's bad for you because you eat it, number one, you eat at midnight. Number two, you eat that, and then you eat like 3 Little Debbie desserts, or then you eat your batch of coconut ice cream from Whole Foods. I'm getting fat. It must be the grain. Really? It's not the coconut ice cream? I'm gonna go on an all-protein diet and starve my cells and create ammonia in my body. Okay. Good luck. Good luck with that. Biodiesel, the act of taking a plant that you have to use machines to plant, machines to water, machines to fertilize, gas to fertilize, natural gas to fertilize, machines to spray pesticide on, machines to oil to make the pesticides, oil to run all of the machines thus far named, oil to pick, oil to grind, oil to thresh, oil to pick, oil to thresh, oil to grind and mill, oil to chemically process, chemically treat, chemicals to create the chemicals to chemically treat, oil to create the chemicals, oil to create the packaging, the plastic, oil to run the machines that you wrap the things in, oil to dry or freeze, or gasoline to dry or freeze, or natural gas, what you're drying, freezing, oil to ship it, diesel to ship it, gas, natural gas and oil to run the store, to keep the store climatically neutral, dry and cool, so that you can have the stuff on the shelves there so that it doesn't go bad for 6 weeks. So that you can walk in and buy your little animal-shaped cereal. It's so good, and it only has 28 grams of sugar per ball. Yeah, we're good. We're doing well. We are doing well. Don't let anybody tell you different. Don't let anybody get you down. Don't let the bad guys come in and take your joy away. We're joyful. Let's be joyful. Let's be optimists. Everything will work out. Everything's going to be fine. Don't think bad thoughts. You'll make reality by your bad thoughts. By thinking bad thoughts, you'll create bad thoughts. There's going to be plenty of oil. Just keep thinking good thoughts. Listen, I understand there are people who run around and worry all the time, and because they're worried nobody wants to be around them, and they make themselves anxious. That's different than looking at reality and going, shit, we're using a lot of this oil stuff, 19 million barrels a day in this country, 85 million barrels a day around the world. Why don't we use less? Don't call me un-American. Let's just use less. Let's use less of this stuff, and let's let civilization readjust the way that it does things. Let's actually create a civilization that wants to last for 1,000 years. 1,000 years of growing food in your lawn. 1,000 years of growing food in neighborhoods. 1,000 years of actually having neighborhoods that are based around town centers and civic areas and shared areas. Let's build that. Come on. What's stopping us? Come on, let's do it. Let's plant trees everywhere. Let's plant food trees, I mean. Let's plant trees that bear fruit and seeds and nuts and food. Come on, why not? We can do it. It's that or die off. You've been listening to the Liam Scheff Show on UCY TV and Truth Frequency Radio. Please support independent journalism and buy a book. It's called Official Stories. It's at Amazon.com. You can buy The Truth About Love, a novel about finding your more than one, because we're not really very monogamous, not really, we're tribal. You can support me by going to my webpage, liamscheff.com, and clicking on the PayPal link and putting in 10, 15, 20, whatever you can afford. I thank you for sharing this time with me. See you next time. And just a reminder, not that I haven't said it enough, but if you like your independent research, journalism, etc., please support it by buying the material that we independents put out. Official Stories is the story of 9/11, JFK, CIA, vaccination, HIV, and the fake sciences that pollute our minds today. 9/11, by the way, something that we may revisit soon, was about oil. That's right. We had to get into the Middle East at the beginning of the 21st century. That's outlined in, I think, clear and easy to follow prose in chapter 4 of my book. The energy, the agenda, the desire to go into the Middle East and hold it as a permanent allocation was on the table at the end of the 1990s and certainly the beginning of 2001, when the documents were penned by the various members of the Project for a New American Century. They invoke Zionism, they invoke this or that religious concern, but Dick Cheney's group on energy made it clear it was about oil. We're in a permanent decline state, he noted. We're going to be in a permanent decline state with nothing to make up for the shortfall. We're going to have to look to the Middle East. We're going to have to hold it. There is a scene in Oliver Stone's occasionally muddled, but I think sometimes quite good movie W, that is this. It is the theatrical demonstration of those papers, and it's the scene where Cheney shows you the various maps of the Middle East and the world, and how it has to look. He's scolding Colin Powell for trying to be kind of a Boy Scout. Never mind the weapons of mass destruction. It's oil that runs the world. It's oil that makes the world go round. Not money, but oil makes the modern world modern. Without it, you got to start